Okay, this is a quick overview of the recruiter policy settings and auto submit settings for the Catalyst auto submit process. Real quick, just want to step through here. So the current overview of what we do, we allow nurses to enter in their job preferences. The Catalyst will grade those. We have a hard-coded policy that determines which jobs are sent, and then we send those matches on to the HCP view, so that can be seen in the application as well as the website. Going forward, based on this user story, we're going to continue to allow the nurse to enter in their job preferences. The Catalyst is going to continue grading jobs the way it does today. And then this new section here is basically beefing up the current process that we have. So we do have a default policy in place. The way we built that is such that we could expand it, and now we're ready to do so. So this graded area here that says policies determine what we can do with jobs, with the graded jobs. The current policy that we have now is the send policy, and right now that's allowing anything that's not an F, with the exception of specialty, that needs to be a B. And then we will send those on to the HCP's view. That's what we do today. We're going to continue doing that, but with what we're talking about in this sprint, we're going to give the recruiter the ability to make adjustments. So they can leave it as the default policy, or they can make adjustments moving forward. The submit policy is a new thing here we've talked about before, but we're ready to do it now. And that is basically saying, under certain circumstances, can we go ahead when we see a job that is a good match for a nurse, can we go ahead and send those on? And so this example here says, hey, if it has all A's but a B in pay, or all A's but a B in specialty, the nurses agree that we can go ahead and submit them. And so we want to go ahead and do that. That is two separate policies. They're treated as an or, but together we will evaluate, and if either one of those policies are true, then we would go ahead and do the thing, which would be to auto submit the matching job. Okay, here's a quick look at what the changes need to be to the UI. So you can see here on the HCP info screen, we have created two new buttons, the job preferences and submission settings. We have details here for those. Right now, job preferences is going to be disabled, but the submission settings will be enabled. And when they click on that, we want to have this pop up. And the pop-up is using the navigation pills that are found from our Creative Tim template. And I don't know if we're going to be able to integrate that. I understand that that is in view. I don't know if we can find a version that would work with ours or not. And if not, let's talk about it. But the idea is that we would still be able to see the screen in the background, so we know exactly which nurse we're dealing with. And then that has two tabs, the Send Jobs to Candidate tab and the Job Auto Submit tab. You can see also we have a quick description below that tells exactly what that type of policy does, and then a way to enable and disable the policies, as well as the grid here that shows us what the policy actually is. And so there'll be a default that will automatically be there. It may or may not be enabled based on other rules that we'll talk about another time. But you see this screen can also be closed by clicking in the top right corner. Okay, so here's a breakdown of that details of that candidate, Send Jobs to Candidate section. And this is just to call it all out. You can see on the bottom right here, when you click on the three dots, it kind of falls over. You can see it changes visibly so that you can know which one is expanded, and shows a section below that that gives you a description for what each of these settings are, as well as what the current setting is in the form of a slider. And so I understand that these sliders may not look 100% the way they do here, so let's not waste a whole lot of time this time making it look that way. Whenever you have an idea of what we have to work with, let's just talk about it real quick. And so they have the ability, once it's expanded, to just delete or to make a change and then hit save. Yeah, saving will also automatically collapse that. We have the details on the next slide on how this particular portion works. By clicking the Add button, you can create a new row, and it will default to the default, and they can make changes. Okay, here's that expanded view that I was just talking about. Okay, so send policies, this is a quick definition here, just to make sure we're clear on what these types of policies do. The send policies will define the minimum score that we will send in each category. Multiple policies are an or, like we talked about. The enable switch applies to all of the policies of that type. And so you can't have one on, another one off. It is kind of a global thing. So in effect, by turning off or disabling a policy, you're preventing it from firing. But that is different from deleting the policy. So a person can go in and delete all of the send policies for a given nurse if we just don't want them to see anything ever. Because of some feedback we got or whatever, they would just go in and delete them. If we don't want them to be able to see them right now, we would disable them, and we'll have automated processes in the future that will turn them on and off depending on certain things. A quick example of that, if we have a nurse who has used the auto submit process to get an open contract, we will programmatically in the future go in and disable that policy. We don't want to delete them, we're just going to disable it. And then when we get like 6 weeks before the end of an assignment, then we'll re-enable it so that they can start looking for their next thing. But we don't want them shopping around for grass that's greener on the other side as we're working to get them on the job. And then finally, new policies will be populated with a default grade for each category and will be displayed in the order that the candidate gives. When there are when there are changes to the preferences, if the category rank is changed or new category preferences are defined by the category, so right now by the candidate. Right now we have 6. If there's a new 7th one, or if someone goes in and makes a change to the order, the default policies that are the ones that are currently on an HCP's attached to an HCP. If none of the categories have been changed, we'll call that a default policy. So if you just hit the plus button, or if it's automatically created for you, and as a recruiter you haven't gone in and make any adjustments at all we're going to do is just change the order of the categories to reflect the new rank that the HCP gave us, and the default values are given to every category based on the most restrictive default for their position and category. So something that we decided on earlier was that we'll have a default based on position. So whatever's in the first position may be an A, and the second one may be an A, and the third position may be a C or a D, and so on and so forth. But we also added in an extra layer there that says if you are, we are going to explicitly say that the default minimum for specialty is B. And so that is tied to the actual category as opposed to the position. And so we want to get the most restrictive combination of the position and the category. And then manual policies that have been adjusted by the recruiter, we're going to show them in the new order, and we're going to keep all of the existing criteria that was put in place for each category. And the new categories will be added into the appropriate position based on the default criteria for that particular position / category. Okay, and so sending jobs to the candidate. So actually I have the wrong title up here. I'm going to fix that in the notes, but this is for the job auto submit. So this is the second tab. If you look over on here, it's the right tab. And this is the one that's going to automatically control, these are the auto submit jobs. So if we get something that is all A's, for example, can we go ahead and submit you? Yes or no? And so this is where that would be defined. We are not automatically going to have one show up here because we're not automatically going to auto submit for new nurses, for example. But when a recruiter comes in and hits the plus button, this is how they go about setting someone up for auto submit. It'll default, and we'll hit the plus button. It will bring in a record into the grid, and it would probably, I think our default's going to be all A's. So hey, if we find the perfect match, can we go ahead and submit you? Yes, we can. And so we'll go ahead and do that here. And I think in the actual notes, this will be straightened out because I think I have some text wrong on this page. Apologize. And then finally, this is the auto submit policies defined. This works just like the send policies, except for at the bottom, we're just calling out the fact that The current default for auto submit should be all A's. And we're not going to have one show up automatically when you first enter a new nurse or we have policy show up. So hope that is helpful.